Hey, welcome everyone to the IARS Virtual Education Webinar, Junior Faculty Success and Leadership Development Tools That Work, co-sponsored by the Early Stage Anesthesiology Scholars. Next slide. This webinar has received no commercial support. Next slide. In case you missed the 2023 annual meeting, on-demand recordings are available for purchase. Visit the website for more information. And if you're interested in becoming a member of eSAS, scan the QR code on the screen for more information. After this webinar, join the speakers in the IARS Doc Matter community to continue the conversation. Please submit your questions via the Q&A button below. You'll receive also an email after this webinar with information about CME. CME is available for this webinar to IARS members only. A recording of this webinar will be available to IARS members at the end of the week. So now to introduce our speakers, I am Njoku, one of the webinar moderators, a faculty member at the University of Maryland School of Medicine. My colleague, Dr. Mada Helou, is the co-moderator for this webinar who envisioned, assembled, and organized this panel of colleagues who will be sharing their experiences today. She is the associate professor at Case Western Reserve School of Medicine and the anesthesiology program director at University Hospitals, Cleveland Medical Center. She also practices critical care medicine and transplant anesthesiology. Jaffar is a professor of anesthesiology and critical care at Wayne State University School of Medicine. He is also the residency program director at Detroit Medical Center. His professional experiences are many and include anesthesiology, critical care, and healthcare management. Ayodele, is a specialist in pediatric anesthesiology. She's a member of the Cook Children's Hospital in Fort Worth, Texas. Her academic focus is faculty development. Pesa is at Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. He is the chief of surgical critical care and the chief of the division of transplantation, as well as associate program director for anesthesiology residency at University Hospitals of Cleveland. We also have George Williams II, who is professor, vice chair, and division chief of critical care medicine at the University of Texas Health Sciences at the Houston McGovern Medical School. He is an anesthesiologist intensivist among his many other duties. Two other members joining us are James Hill, an experienced physician executive who is the chief operating officer at University Hospitals Parma Medical Center. His many contributions are in healthcare management for the University Hospital Health System. And Elvira Barron, who is associate professor and a cardiothoracic anesthesiologist, also at Case Western University, but also is the medical director of the Simulation Center at the VA of Northeastern Ohio Healthcare System. I will now turn over to Dr. Mada Helou.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us tonight. We're really excited to have you. So this is just meant to be a webinar that's energizing and empowering, and just to be a foretaste of what fun and effective career planning can look like for all of you. Our aim is to give you concrete leadership tools and hopefully 1 to 3 things that you can go home and do different, along with your plan to help you advance along your career path. So if you like this, you can catch me and Dr. Barone at the OSA, for those of you that live in Ohio, or Dr. Hill and I at the ASA, and hopefully the Advanced Conference as well. We're going to have more broad workshops that you can kind of, expand everything you're learning tonight. So thank you so much for joining us. Put all of your questions in the chat box. We will take them either as they come or at the very end. We're very excited to have you. And without further ado, I will turn over to Dr. Jaffar so he can speak to you about career visioning.
Thank you, Mada. And let's start with mine. Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Jaffar. So currently I'm a program director at the Detroit Medical Center. So I have no financial relationship with any commercial interest or disclose, and my presentation does not include any disclosure of any off-label or investigational use of any products. So, I'm going to start with whenever you are thinking about career planning, especially for those who are just joining any academic practice, before even you join, you just want to know exactly what is required for this, academic center that I'm going to be joining. What is their career planning or promotion and tenure product is basically, or what guidelines they have. And when I joined University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences, I had no idea, but my chair was a great help to me, and I was able to find the document on our at the university at that time, and was able to follow some of it. But my first thing is always that what are my areas of interest? So what do I see or where do I see myself in 1 year, 3 year, and 5 years from now? And what are my priorities, especially when you're choosing a pathway? Is it going to be an academic pathway? Am I going to be 100% or 95% clinical? Do I like to be on the administrative side? And or I'm going to be all 4 domains, that academic, research, administrative, as well as clinical. And then you can also think about, if I want to be in academics, what part of academics I'm interested in. So that means in the residency program, fellowship, or maybe at the medical school that I'm going to be involved in. I got early involvement with the medical school, especially I was a member of the curriculum committee, as well as I became also the director of the medical student rotation, 3rd year and 4th year rotations early. And that helped me to navigate what I really liked. So you also, one thing that we always forget, especially coming out of residency programs, is our financial health. A lot of medical students and residents, they do have a lot of loans still sitting there. And if you're planning your career, as well as, so you also want to look at how I'm going to be paying off my loans as well. So always find someone who can help you, guide you for your financial health. And then look for the promotion and tenure guidelines, and develop your, basically it helps in finding out with the self-reflection and self-awareness that what are my strengths and areas of improvement that I need. For example, you may be a great teacher, and residents love you in the operating room, or maybe the medical students love you in the classroom, but you may need some other areas, for example, simulation, that you are interested in, but you don't have much interaction or work in a simulation center, but you want to improve yourself in that area. So start looking for how I can work my way into that area. Or it may be that if you're interested in academics, but also some research or maybe writings, then you can start finding out exactly if how I can develop myself in academics with some publications in that area. So finding a good mentor and coaching, especially at the academic centers or university, that can help you in navigating through your career early and not being lost. Especially, it happens a lot of time that you join as an assistant professor, and it's already now 5 years in the university, and you haven't been able to put together your CV as well as all the required element that is needed for the promotion to the associate professor or gaining a tenure in the department or at the university level. So there are a few different tracks which are available most of the university hospital. It can be just a clinical track with the 90% of clinical service. And in service, it can be administration, maybe some academic contributions. You can also look at your patient outcomes and some sort of community service. Some people like to contribute inside their own city. Some like to go out of country. I got involved, actually, I'm originally from Pakistan, so I got involved early going to Pakistan almost every year to academic centers there and started giving some talks there as well. So you need to find yourself what you like, and again, getting involved in those areas is very important early. So looking at your promotion and tenure guidelines and see if you are on a clinical track, what is required for the promotion in the clinical track, or it may be a clinical educator pathway where you need to find out exactly what type of clinical service that you are involved in. Maybe you are a neuroanesthesiologist and you have developed a neuroanesthesiology curriculum, or maybe a pathway for improvement for craniotomies, or maybe awake craniotomies pathway, or you have developed some pathways for monitoring intraoperatively somatosensory evoked potential, or motor pathways, or maybe you are an OB anesthesiologist or critical care. So finding your niche in specialized area can help you improve and develop your CV while you are in academic center. Curriculum development is always great in any residency program. If you're interested in developing goals and objectives for the rotation, and also looking at if those goals and objectives were met and how you can improve in those areas, that becomes a kind of scholarly activity within the department, or it can be in a curriculum development for medical students. It can be an introduction to clinical pathways in at medical school for anesthesia students, or it may be any other students that you are looking for. Administration, especially in committees, hospital-wide or medical school-wide, those committees, becoming a chair of a committee can also help, and getting involved nationally, especially with the American Society of Anesthesiology, Society of Critical Care Medicine, IARS, SEA. So if you are an anesthesiologist, but if you are not, then going for your own area of specialty, you can find how you can become a member. Sometimes it gets very difficult to become a member of a committee nationally when there are so many members, but don't lose hope. It will come. It took me 5 years to become a member of a committee at ASA after I kept on applying every year. So it comes with time, but you will be able to. National and international recognition, again, that comes with the involvement in major committees as well as associations. So American Medical Association is great. Also ACGME, they have annual conference, and you can become a member of some of the committees there as well, and many other national organizations that you can become member of. Physician scientist track, which is again all of the above, plus if you are going to be on that track, then you need to find out how many publications that you have to be promoted to the next level. Some may have every year 3 publications in a peer-reviewed journal. There may be others may be asking for 5, or if you have written any grants or any peer recognition. Have you provided any mentoring to medical students or postdoc fellows? So all these are your early goals that you can align for your promotion and tenure within the department. So you want to have short-term and long-term planning, develop a plan for 1 year, and come back again to your plan and see if you have been able to met your goals for that year. If you were able to, then you move on to the second, the next 2 years, and find out what are your goals for the next 2 years and next 5 years. So this way you can actually start managing your goals. Again, as I said, personal development is again very important. Personal development comes with the satisfaction and well-being. If you are happy and your family is happy, then your career will be much better, in a much better position. But if you're already so much into, okay, I just have to pay my loans, I don't care, I'm in an academic practice, but I just have to pay my loans, and that is my goal. But then you may end up spending a lot more time in the same rank as compared to planning early, making sure that, yes, I need to take care of myself, my family, as well as my career, all three aligned for your short-term and long-term planning. So again, for leadership development, again, you want to have a vision. If you want to become a program director, so what is required to be a program director? If your vision is to become a chair of a department, or you want to be, let's say, quality officer for the hospital, then you need to start working towards that goal. What is required to be a chair, and what do I need to do? Any administrative duties, any academic duties? Do I have to have research? And what is my clinical involvement? So all those 4 domains that you want to touch based on. And then having a national and international recognition that can help you to develop your plan for your leadership. Scholarly activity, again, maintaining a good log of your scholarly activities. Almost every universities, they have their own way of developing or keeping track of your publications, as well as abstracts and putting your CV together. Some of us may have assistants who are helping us. Others may not have an assistant. So you want to make sure that your publications, all your abstracts, your presentations, grand round presentations, your national or international presentations, they're all kept with time. And also a lot of time we do forget about evaluations. So wherever you did a presentation, you want to make sure that you get the evaluations back for that. So this way, you, number one, that you can improve yourself for the next presentation, but also when your application goes for promotion, the faculty might ask, okay, yes, you know, Dr. Jaffar did 100 presentations, but we don't see any evaluations of his presentation. So having a good composite of evaluations with comments help for the faculty who are reviewing your application, so they can decide, yes, you know, he or she does have a great scholarly activity and deserve to be promoted. Okay. And if you are involved in social media or your podcast or any of these new outlets or news outlets are out there, then you want to keep track of that as well, and have not as a video presentations or anything, but at least you need to keep track of what you have been doing on social media. Okay. With that, I think I'm going to stop here. I think my time is up. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next presenter is Dr. Okay.
I'm going to share my screen. Hello, everyone, and I will be discussing what I like to call the 3 pillars of success: awareness, mindset, and setting priorities. I have no disclosures, and these are objectives for the talk. So let's start with self-awareness. And really, it's taking a look at yourself in the mirror. And the Leadership Institute for Faculty Development describes self-awareness as an inwardly focused, evaluative process in which individuals make self-standard comparisons with the goal of better self-knowledge and improvement. Whereas the American Academy of Dermatology states that self-awareness is having an accurate picture of one's own strengths and weaknesses being able to capitalize on one's own strength and to compensate for one's own weaknesses. And then lastly, which this definition is my favorite, it's by the International Hospital Federation. Self-awareness includes self-recognition, the ability to recognize that one's own emotions will either constrain or empower one's own emotional response, but also the emotional response of others. Now, when you look at self-awareness, we want to look at three main areas. The first is intrapersonal, and that is from within yourself. And it really encompasses knowledge of your strengths and your weaknesses, as those are really critical in leadership and critical in you selecting what type of role you want to take as a leader. Of course, you want to select something that will highlight your strengths and not your weaknesses. Then you want to look at interpersonal, and that is how you interact and relate with others. And lastly, the systems. How do you as an individual fit within the teams within your system or within the organization itself? All of that is going to be important as you take on these leadership roles. Now, when you decide to, become more self-aware, which you've made that decision by showing up today, you want to look at your past experiences. One, what type of project did you enjoy? What type of work environment do you enjoy? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What brings you joy on a weekly basis, or what drains you? You also want to look at how you are during stressful moments. Do you place blame? Do you need space? Do you micromanage? Do you freeze? Are you positive? Are you encouraging? And lastly, you want to look at the feedback, both positive and negative. Many institutions are doing either annual or biannual feedbacks. And so you want to look at recurring themes, both positive and both negative. You want to look at past feedback, especially from those that you respect. And lastly, if you've taken a leadership course, there is a chance they had you do a 360-degree review. And this review is really, really great to help you develop more self-awareness as you navigate the field of leadership. Now, I put this on here on purpose, and while it's not the focus of our talk today, I do think it's really important for us to do a little self-evaluation. And as you look at the things that I've listed, you'll notice that for sure it's not an exhaustive list. You'll also notice that some of the things on this list are your strengths, while others are your weakness or your weak areas. Your ability to create or change your weak areas and make them your strength all depends on your mindset. Now, your mindset ultimately affects your attitude, which will affect how others interact with you. Your attitude would affect your behavior and your actions, which may or may not have a positive or negative impact on your ability to be successful in your role. The American Association for Physician Leaders defines mindset as someone's established set of attitudes and how they evaluate certain people and situations. All right, let's get into it. Mindset. There are certainly different types of mindset. There's a servant leader, and these individuals like to know how they can serve their team. There's the optimist, and they look for the positive side in things. But my favorite one, which I think you can attribute to both servant leader, optimist, or whatever type of mindset you have, is the growth versus fixed mindset. And that's going to be our focus today. All right. So let's start with fixed mindset. And I believe we have all met someone who has a fixed mindset, either in medical school, residency, fellowship, as an attending, at the golf course, somewhere you have met someone who says intelligence is innate, it's too late to learn and gain a new perspective, or they just say, I am who I am. But the growth mindset tend to think that everyone can learn something new. They feel that I can be better depending on my effort. I always try, even if it leads to failure. And they believe that failure is still an opportunity for them to learn. So it's not surprising that those with growth mindset have a better ability to lead a team, are more successful leaders, are able to impact change, and are more likely to be promoted. So let's aim for the growth mindset. All right, so with the pandemic, I am sure every hospital is setting priorities, whether it is retaining faculty, developing quality improvements that reduce airway-related complications, providing research opportunities for your department, increasing promotion, especially in women and minority, or some other form of implementation that would better improve the state of your organization. Now, the question is, when everything is a priority, how do we begin to then prioritize? Great question. So let's start with the framework. When you have a framework, it allows you to critically evaluate what's important in your institution. And if you're new to the institution, this is an opportunity for you to involve the employees, see what their needs are. And you want to start by first creating a vision. What are you aiming to achieve? Is it retention? Is it quality improvement? Is it more research opportunity? Is it promotion? Is it camaraderie? And then what is your mission? And usually the mission is a one-sentence statement that highlight what your goal is. Is it to take safe, efficient care, loving care of your pediatric patients, or is it something else? And once you have this vision and mission, your objective should then align with that. So if your objective is to increase research grant acceptance by, 20%, you want to write that down. You also want to set a few additional objectives and maybe even set timeframes. Maybe you want to reduce the risk of airway-related complications by 20% in the next year. You list that as your objective. Then the strategies you have will address those objectives so that you can better measure whether or not you're successful. And then your initiative will also follow the strategies and the objectives as well. And through all of this, you're going to continue to measure and see whether or not you're meeting your goals, whether or not you need to change your goals. And this is where your mindset is going to be important. Your growth mindset is going to be important. One other area I want to talk about are called legacy initiatives. And these are initiatives that were there before you probably considered going to medical school, or were there before you took on your leadership role, or things that are just the way of whatever the institution that you're a part of is. And it's important to evaluate those legacy initiatives because you still want them to be in line with your vision and your mission. And you want to make sure that the objectives and the strategies that you're taking are all in line so that all of your employees or partners or team workers are all on the same page. All right, wrapping things up. We've gone over awareness, mindset, and framework, and we'll continue this conversation in our breakout session.
Hi, I have a quick question. Can you speak about a major transition in your career where you kind of ended up somewhere you didn't plan, or that you hadn't, like if you've been planning all along and then you kind of decide you needed a change? How have you ever been in that situation, and how did you navigate through that? It's a little scary if you've been working toward one goal for many years and then kind of decide maybe you want something different.
Okay. So is that for anyone or it's for everyone?
Anyone that's had that experience.
So these type of things are going to happen in academic centers. Okay. One day your chair is going to come and say, hey, I need your help. My chair came to me one day and said that, Jaffar, I need your help to run this residency program. I was a faculty for only 3 years in the program. And I said, okay, I'm ready to take the challenge, but I'm going to need some help. So you take the challenge, but also be open-minded, as well as open up to your chair or whoever comes to you to give that task and say, okay, I'm going to need some help in these areas. And what type of help I will be getting to achieve the goals, because you don't want to fail. And if you take that task, so analyze it carefully, and maybe 1 or 2 days or 3 days later, you come back to the person who gave you that task and say, okay, I'm ready to take on this task, but I need help in these 2 or 3 areas so that I can achieve the goals that we are trying to. That's what my take on it.
I would just add one thing to what Dr. Jaffar said, which was don't be afraid to fail, because it's going to happen. Fear of failure becomes a limitation, and you'll discover very quickly that failure with appropriate effort is forgotten and usually forgiven. And it's usually those successes that are unanticipated that will help propel your career a little bit more. That's at least been my pattern. So
I love it. Thank you, gentlemen. We have a couple more segments and then we'll head to a Q&A. Sorry, we're running a little bit behind schedule, but it's all for good discussion and we're going to hang out afterwards as well. So after the mark for those who are interested. So I believe Dr. Pesa is next with his segment on time management.
All right, sorry. So I'm Nick Pesa from University Hospitals Case Western Reserve University, and I've given a talk on time management. There's a bit of irony behind this because my wife is a pretty good source of truth, and she reminded me this weekend as I was putting this presentation together that I had about 3 or 4 months to do this, and I was doing it on the last weekend. So I don't know how qualified I am to talk about time management, but I'll try. Let's see here. Oh, my slides won't advance. Oh, there we go. Here's all my stuff. I have no financial relationships related to this. My presentation doesn't include any discussion of off-label or investigational use of any drugs. I think, some of the basic tenets of time management are that time is truly, our most valuable resource. I know that's kind of a cliche thing to say, that you can't get time back, I guess, unless you have a DeLorean or something. But you've got to really recognize that time is a resource. It is finite. And the more you pay attention to that and how you manage it, the better you will be off. And the other thing is that your return on investment for active time management can be enormous. If you really put some extra effort into actively managing your time, and although that's more time expenditure, the returns you can get on it are great, and not just for productivity. Especially for me personally, my mental health, when I'm managing my time well, it just is so much better. If I'm procrastinating something, or if I have a long to-do list that I'm not managing and it's getting out of control, I don't feel good, and then I'm less productive as a result. So I think it's really good to recognize that even putting in some time into your time management, I'm just going to keep repeating that term over and over, is really a great thing. And then keep in mind, I know we're all physicians here, that we always look for randomized controlled trials that are double-blinded and that they've got statistically significant results. We're not treating sepsis here. So if you read through the literature on time management, you're not going to find rigorous scientific studies here. These are going to a lot of qualitative research. It's going to be a lot of survey data. It's going to be things like that. But that doesn't mean that, some of the stuff you're going to read afterwards isn't worthwhile. And I think what it comes down to after having read through a lot of this stuff over the course of my life is that you got to just try new things, see what's out there that people are doing that's working for them, and see if it works for you. Not everything that's going to work for Elon Musk is going to work for the rest of us. There's lots out there about how he manages his time and lots of other things. And you just got to try out new things, and maybe it will work, maybe it won't for you, but at least you'll be putting some time into managing your own time.
Lisa, excuse me, I'm sorry. It looks like
Yeah.
one of you might have a Zoom window on the right-hand side of your slides. Yep, right there. If you move that away, it'll be easier for us to see the slides.
Great. Did that take care of it?
It's up at the top now, but it's better. I don't think it will interfere with the slides. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Sorry. So I'm just going to focus on this talk in a few kind of concrete areas where you can improve time management. I think in Outlook, and you're using your Outlook email and calendar, I think most hospitals utilize Microsoft software. Outlook, although confusing at first, I think can be an enormous resource for you. The learning curve can be steep, I get it. It's not the most intuitive program, especially for me. But there are a lot of resources out there, and at the end of my presentation, I have one of them listed. There's a lot of resources actually on YouTube. Leila Garani is somebody that puts together a lot of videos on these things and can teach you an enormous number of small and easy to remember tips for Outlook that really help with your email organization, with how you kind of try and follow a one-touch rule where you open up an email and you decide immediately what you're going to do with it, and it doesn't stay in your inbox and you don't come back to it again. Because email checking can absolutely be a distraction. And I even though I know this and I try not to do it, I let it interfere with my day all the time. I'll be working on something on my computer, maybe putting together, I don't know, and I put together our ICU schedule. So I'm putting together an ICU schedule, and I'll just see that little Outlook thing come up in the bottom right-hand corner, and it's an email, and I'll go, oh God, I should check that email and see what they're asking for. But I think, one of the things that I've started to do that's actually really effective is there's a little button called Work Offline on your Outlook. You can get it to stop syncing with the server, stop getting new emails. You can get a bunch of work done. And then, whatever your routine is, every 2 hours, maybe 3 times a day, depending on what your clinical load is or what else you're doing that day, you can then set a schedule and a routine to check your email and not let it be kind of a constant background distraction. The other thing that I think is really great about Outlook is if you use the calendar effectively and you keep it updated, and whether that's you or your administrative assistant, whomever, it makes things much easier in terms of scheduling meetings, in terms of setting the course of your day. There's just a lot that can be gained by maintaining a nice updated calendar, even though that does take a lot of work, especially within Outlook. It can be a great resource. Okay, then your to-do list. I've gone back and forth over the years with how I do my to-do list, whether it's on paper, on my phone, on the computer. I still don't know what the best thing is for me. What I'm working with currently and what I see a lot of people, at least out there in the zeitgeist, using is kind of an integrated to-do list and calendar, where my calendar, I kind of put my to-do list into my calendar, and I'll go over this in the next slide as well. And then my calendar really sets my day. So, you can also keep an offline thing that's more analog, like a notebook. I'm trying that as well to see how well that works for me. My biggest worry there is that I'll lose it. I'm not necessarily the best person in terms of holding on to things like that, which is a worry, but as long as I'm only keeping thoughts and short-term things in there, I think that's all right. And I'll be able to absorb the loss of a notebook. And then one of the biggest things for me in terms of my to-do list is the completion. I call it the completion dopamine. When I get to check a box of something I've done, I am so much happier. I feel good about it. Everything feels right in the world. And I'll even, if I've done something and I didn't have it on my to-do list, as stupid as this sounds, I'll then write it down on my to-do list and immediately scratch it off because I feel better about having done something. So I think having a to-do list integrated into your calendar allows you to really get all of those things done. And the other thing is, every day I try and set a most important task. I define it every day, and I try and get it done as early as I can in the morning. So, today was actually a meeting with Dr. Helou. And so that was my most important task today. And we went over some things related to our residency. And that was like our big thing. And we did it as soon as we got into work, because that is your peak performance hours, right? As soon as you get in, whether you've gone to the gym in the morning or something like that, regardless, that's when you're going to be the most creative, the most productive, and you should try and get your most important task done early in the morning. So time boxing. So this is something that is another kind of concrete tip for people to use. And you can look at this calendar and it looks a bit much in terms of, okay, wow, this person is literally scheduling every single thing. They've got, you know, coffee, breakfast, everything's in here. But I think it's actually great in terms of setting your, this is essentially integrating your to-do list into your calendar. So, you know, when you do these things in terms of time boxing, it really helps with not letting things get away from you and making sure you're still addressing everything you need to do throughout the day. And the biggest thing for me with time boxing, because I actually do this, is that you can avoid something called Parkinson's law. So Parkinson's law is this thought that if you do it, if you've got a task to do and you don't put any limitations on it, it will expand like a gas and fill whatever time void you have. And putting together this presentation was a great example of it. I didn't set a deadline for myself. I had months and months to work on it, and yet I let it expand to the entire period of that time, and when I could have accomplished it in a much shorter period of time. So I think, you know, time boxing, setting yourself limits, holding yourself accountable to your own calendar can really help you become more effective, more productive, and really get to all the things that you need to do. And I think it also helps you avoid switching tasks and getting distracted, which can both really reduce your effectiveness. Because as we know, like, you know, you can try and multitask. That's not always the most effective way to do things. And sometimes it's just better to just sit down with one thing and only think about that one thing and do that one thing throughout that period of time. Here's another kind of more concrete thing is the hell yeah or no philosophy. This is just a book by Derek Sivers, Hell Yeah or No. It's a pretty short read, available on Amazon or Kindle. I would highly recommend it. And I think it's an important thing for us to read, especially as we start our careers. So most of the time, right, up until this point, we've always said yes to everything. At least that's how I have been. I just said yes, okay, whatever opportunity it was, I wanted to say yes to. But that doesn't necessarily lead you on the best path. So I think it's really important, like Dr. Jaffar and Dr. Oke talked about earlier, is really some self-awareness, some self-examination, looking at what your goals are, picking kind of a track for yourself, identifying your strengths and weaknesses, and then being okay saying no to things that don't align with those goals. Now, I'm not saying you say no to everything that doesn't align with them. You still have to maintain flexibility, but it is important that you have some direction to what you say yes to and not just blindly say yes to every opportunity that's out there. And then this is something I really love to do is outsource and delegate. This is something that I don't think I appreciated as much early on, especially when I was younger. But I think outsourcing, delegating things away from your plate is another way to make yourself extremely effective and productive and manage your time a bit better. An example for me is I actually really love mowing the lawn. I'm just like, I don't know, a stereotypical suburban dad. I want to go out on a Saturday and sit on my lawnmower and mow the lawn. That's not, it takes me forever though, because we got too much grass. So I can't really afford to spend all those hours doing that. So, you know, hiring a lawn service, something like that. And even within work, you know, using a piece of software to automate some process that you're already doing, or relying more on your administrative assistants, whether they're your own or whether they're part of the departments, to do tasks that don't necessarily need you to personally do them. One of the things that I think was hard with this for me in terms of outsourcing and delegation was that I wanted everything done perfectly, which was to my standard. I don't think that you can necessarily then hold everyone else around you to the same standard. And sometimes good enough is better than perfection, right? We've all heard that saying that the enemy of good is better. So don't always try and get the most perfect product out of whoever you're delegating to. Maybe sometimes it's okay to just have good enough. So I'm just going to summarize since I'm trying to go pretty quick here and move things along. But for me, the big things are develop an email checking routine, whatever it is, and try and apply a single touch rule, meaning you look at it once, you decide immediately what to do with it, whether it goes into a folder about, you know, resources for later, or you're going to reply immediately, or you're going to set a reminder that you need to reply to this on X date. Whatever it is, look at it once, decide what you're going to do with it, and then put it down. utilize a calendar to-do list combination. I think it's massively important to use both of those things, and whether you favor your calendar of your to-do list or vice versa, it doesn't really matter. Whatever works for you, I think, is what you should go for. And then prioritize your most important task. Pick one thing per day, focus on that in the morning, and try and get it done with some type of assigned time, which is the next point, so that you've time boxed out how long you're going to work on it. You set yourself some limits, and you're going to hold yourself accountable. Next point, learn to just say no to some opportunities that don't align with your track and your goals, but remember to maintain flexibility. You obviously don't want to be the person that your chair comes to and you keep saying no to everything they offer you, because at some point those offers may start to diminish. But it's okay to say no to some things as long as they don't align with what your goals really are. And then again, delegate and outsource. So as much as you can, get rid of things off your plate that you don't personally need to do. Think about your time in terms of what it's worth, whatever you can, spend in terms of you paying somebody minimum wage maybe to do something that you're going to spend hours on might be worth it in the end, because you can spend that time you've saved on it doing something else, doing something more productive that's good for your long-term career. In terms of resources, I mentioned her earlier. Layla Garani on YouTube has phenomenal videos on how to get better at Outlook, Excel, all of those Microsoft products, including a bunch of other. Outsourcing, I use actually a service called Fiverr. I send stuff to them for data entry, production of spreadsheets, all of those things. It's great in terms of spending very little cash, but being able to get a lot of good products out of it. Unemployed professors or Eloquenti are great for proofreading, writing, especially some of your scientific writing for Eloquenti. And then resources further down, try and get this book, The Hell Yeah or No by Derek Sivers. It's actually pretty good. And it's a quick read and very useful. All right, there's my references, and we'll move on to the next one, sorry.
Although we're running a little bit over time, we really do have an excellent presentation from Dr. George Williams that we will play now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Njoku, for that kind introduction. I'm really excited to be here with everyone today. To start off, I don't have any relevant financial disclosures, and I will not be talking about off-label indications for drug usage. But with regards to intentional networking, our objectives are relatively straightforward: to describe various types of networking opportunities that are pertinent to academic medicine. Specifically, this is not going to be a business class on all the values and virtues of networking altogether, but this is really intended to be a practical application of something that you and I can do as we go about our daily academic routines to be effective in networking. And then really going to analyze the relationship of networking to other professional opportunities, how those tie together, how we can be prepared to take advantage of that, and how we can meet our expectations appropriately for that. And then, of course, to synthesize an approach to individualized networking in clinical practice in our daily routine. So that being said, let's say I gave each and every one of you this particular house, and you walked into this house. I said, you need to find a way to get this house worthy to be sold, to be occupied, to meet code, to be safe for someone that you would care about. That, for many people, would be a rather Herculean task. And that is specifically because most of us don't know enough contractors, don't have enough construction wherewithal on our own to achieve that task. We're going to end up talking to people, making phone calls, reaching out to someone who may have done that before in order to get that task completed. That's effectively what networking is, and what networking is intended to be, to allow us to utilize each other as resources to achieve the things that we need to in our daily or regularly scheduled decision-making needs in our different practices. So that being said, meeting people sometimes is equated with networking. And as you can see by this image here, which was taken during the Anesthesiology 2022 meeting in New Orleans, Louisiana, you can see that there are instances where it can feel extremely overwhelming to go to a meeting and try to meet people. For example, this image is taken from the medical student interest in anesthesiology meet and greet, where medical students who are MS3s and MS4s could come meet program directors and residents from various programs all across the country. The demand for this was extremely high. I am quite confident this was a fire hazard. And as you can see, if you went to a networking event like this, it'd be very difficult to meaningfully network. You'd actually may not remember the people you spoke to because you were surrounded by people. This is not an ideal networking scenario. And in an academic meeting, your networking opportunities are really structured in a few different ways. You have your goals, which are going to be established, like where we have our goal is to network or to learn or to achieve the connections for job opportunities, connecting with other peers, connecting with leaders in the field, connecting with maybe trainees that are coming up where we actually want to see what's taking place in the GME world if we're more established in our practices, and of course an opportunity to share our curriculum vitae or other pertinent contact information. But I think we should break it up into social networking, poster sessions, or really the academic nature of a meeting in terms of the sharing of thought leadership, and then leadership from an administrative level in an organization. So specifically, when we talk about that, social networking is really us meeting people and getting a chance to just know them, which is really what networking is really supposed to be about. We're not doing it as a task. We're not doing it to make sure that we get our name out there. Of course, that is a nice side effect, but the goal is to really genuinely get to know people, know what their interests are, know about them, so that if you saw them again a year later, you recognize them, be able to say, hey, Bob, hi, Jan, how are you doing? And meaningfully be able to engage in that conversation. So that really necessitates being professional all the time. Don't use vernacular that you or profanity or things like that with people you don't know. It needs to be something, you need to be able to have a universally clear audio palette, if you will, to make sure that you are able to meet the needs of that and be professional in that capacity. We want to try to also suggest forming relationships outside the specific conference. So for example, if you're at a conference and there's an opportunity to go to a dinner where people are just sharing a table, or maybe even a pharmaceutical dinner with people you don't know, that's a great opportunity to network, because you're going to be sitting there next to someone else for an hour, hour and a half. You're almost certainly going to get to know them quite a bit from that experience. And that's a great way to form relationships outside of the four walls, the structured environment of a conference, if you will. And then, of course, we should be very mindful of our attire. When we go to meetings like this, or we in this environment, it's very important for us to make sure that we recognize that our attire is reflecting or mirroring what our personality is. So it's a great opportunity to use that. For example, I personally like to wear bow ties because they're versatile. I can use them in the clinical setting, and I can practically carry a lot of them to a meeting without issues. And they're also professional. So that's just literally an expression of things that I consider to be important, the way I like to be efficient, and the way I like to express myself while still attempting to be professional. Poster sessions are another great opportunity. You want to be ready to engage in a nice, diverse, and importantly, critical audience. When someone asks you critical questions about your poster or about your academic presentation, if it's a plenary session or a specific lecture, that's good, because that means they're engaging on your topic. They're engaging with what you said, and they're taking that opportunity, seizing that opportunity to learn more about you and how you think and what your work is. QR codes are a great way to share information. Google QR codes, if you don't know about them already, they're very easy to make. You can share your curriculum vitae that way. You can share your contact card that way. You can share your website that way. They're very easy to do, and it's a great way to build that into a poster session. And then, of course, while you're presenting at your poster session, there's absolutely no reason you should not be connecting with each and every neighbor that's around you when you're actually doing your poster session, because you're all in the same boat. You're there presenting and sharing, and that's a great way to make sure that you're maximizing that opportunity. And then, of course, when it comes to the leadership establishment, this is a great chance to go to the governance meetings. Go to committee meetings, go to the House of Delegates, or if the leadership of the executive committee is open to the public, go get a chance to go there, ask questions. If you don't understand something that's going on, because that shows that you're interested, it shows that you're thinking about it, and that you actually can form an opinion based on the information. Volunteering to help is absolutely key in that, because academic societies are always looking for people that are willing to actually step up and do some work and meaningfully help. So please take that opportunity. Just like that big house we talked about in the beginning of the presentation, if you're the president of a society and you need to know who you can appoint to committees, you're going to remember the person that showed up to a committee meeting, asked great questions, and volunteered to help out, because that's the kind of person you want on that committee. And remember, when you're at a meeting, there's a real value proposition to keep in mind. You spent money, it costs you time to travel from a vacation perspective or from an academic time perspective. Your OR is having to cover locum tenens, or potentially just to cover while you're there. Make that investment worthwhile. That time away from your family, the time away from your home is very, very important. Make sure to maximize it. So here's a couple of rules I like to follow. Meet and converse with someone new every day at a minimum. If you're going into the meeting in breakfast time, strike up a conversation, just at least introduce yourself to someone that you've never met while you're in line. Get a chance to just talk to them briefly, get a chance to know them, but you should not go a day without meeting someone new. And avoid going to your team table, so to speak. If there's a table with a load of people that you know, that's a waste of your time academically. You know them already. Go meet someone from a different state. Get a chance to, you're sitting next to them for half an hour during your presentation or while you're sitting and eating. That's a great way to capitalize on that opportunity, that investment that your group is making in you to be there. And there's no pressure, there's only opportunity. So don't go to a meeting and try to be like, I gotta achieve this, I gotta meet this person, I've gotta get someone to express interest in my work or express interest in me. That's great, but it's an opportunity. And sometimes it takes years for an opportunity to present itself or to be capitalized on because you took the time to go to these meetings. So recognize it's the long game. You're just getting a chance to know people, and those opportunities will present themselves. Of course, an elevator pitch is very, very important. It needs to be within 30 to 60 seconds. If someone asks you, hey, tell me about yourself. Well, you want to actually have practiced what you're going to say, because to fit that within 30, 60 seconds is very hard. And this is what the dean's office uses when they're trying to meet with you to determine how they can use your research or your clinical practice to seek philanthropic support for their programs. That 30-second to 60-second elevator pitch is very important. This is why you almost have to have a theme in your CV in order to get effectively promoted, and highlight yourself. This is a great chance to say, this is what I'm about, this is why I'm here, this is what I do. And remember, all politics is local. So when I say that space is cheap, never erase an email, because sometimes an email, particularly from your medical school, from your hospital, is loaded with a treasure trove of information of what you can do or what opportunities there are. Emails themselves are inherently negative. So take the time to meet someone in person, call them on the phone, show up in their office. If you're at your medical school or your hospital, that's the way to really build relationships. Don't trust an email. And then embrace the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy can be very helpful because it shows you what path you need to take in order to achieve what you need. And it's fair for everyone. So don't fight the bureaucracy, embrace it. And to go to the occasional weird event, going to a lecture where you've seen something new or what topic you haven't heard of is a great way to meet other doctors that are in the same boat that you are. And remember, all this networking leads to mentorship. And mentorship is really where the mentor is investing in the mentee, but simultaneously, the mentee is investing in the mentor. So you really want to make sure to take the time to build those relationships, because the mentor may need information about what you've experienced as a mentee, going through the job search, going through the match, and vice versa. The mentor is someplace that you want to be. It's a dual partnership, which is very important. So going to meeting your friends, getting to know them is important. It's absolutely part of the process. In summary, networking is always happening and always needed. And don't lack the opportunity to be intentional and patient about taking those opportunities. It may take years, but that's the way the process works. But being genuine is incredibly important. Genuinely get to know people and know what they're about, and recognize the role of mentorship in this particular endeavor. That being said, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for the opportunity to share, and look forward to your questions. Back to you, Dr. Njoku.
And I will return this also to Dr. Helou for the final comments.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Sorry we ran a bit over. I know your time is super valuable in the evening, but it's always fun when we have such good professionals together. So hopefully you all took some points home. You'll have a list of things that you'll concretely do differently. The IARS team will kindly share all of our information with you so that you can reach out to us offline if you like to. Kristen and Tracy, thank you so much, and we're sorry we ran over. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.